All right, traders, welcome to another update in regards to the progress and results from our gold trading signals provided within our free VIP. As we do with all of our videos, we're going to go over all of our trades that we've called out for the month, calculate in the losses, the wins, the amount of pips delivered, but more importantly, we're going to jump into the chart and go through each signal we called out so that way you can see and verify the quality and accuracy of our trades. Needless to say, we had another profitable month. If you enjoyed today's video, gaining value, like and subscribe. If you want to learn more about our free VIP signal service, you can visit our website down below. But without further ado, let's get started with today's video. All right, folks, so here we have the total tally for the month of June with the trades that we have called out for each individual week, where I've also indicated the amount of pips gained for each winning trade, as well as any losses. So for the first week of June, we delivered just under 2,500 pips in profit, winning 17 out of 19 trades, giving us an 89.47% win rate. Second week, over 3,600 pips in profit, winning 24 out of 25 trades, giving us a 96% win rate. 2,000 pips in profit on our third week, winning 15 out of 18 trades, giving us an 83.33% win rate. And on the last week of June, just over 1,900 pips in profit, winning 11 out of 11 of our trades. So it was a much slower week due to market conditions and other factors which we will go over, but nevertheless closing the last week of the month with a 100% win rate. So from our wins, we delivered over 10,600 pips in profit, but we also had a couple of losses. So again, if you look at our calculations, we had 2 losses on the first week, 1 loss on the second week, 3 losses on the third week, and no losses on the fourth week. So that's a total of 600 pips from our losses. Subtracting that from the total wins gives us a total profit gain of over 10,060 pips for the month with a 92% win rate. Now, for those of you who are new to the concept of pips and how that translates into a dollar value, trading at a small micro lot size of 0.01, that's 10 cents per pip. So multiplied 10,000 by 10 cents is a total profit of just over 1,000. At a 0.05 lot size, that's 50 cents per pip, which is the equivalent of over 5,000 for the month. At a 0.10 lot size, that's $1 per pip. So at 10,060 pips for the month, that's over $10,000. And for those of you with larger accounts trading at a standard 1 lot size, that's $10 per pip. So again, at 10,060 for the month, multiplied by 10, that's over 100,000. Again, folks, this is all by simply copying and pasting the signals that we provide within our free VIP. We do the analysis, we provide the trade setups, and all you have to do is take the information from the signal we send out, copy it onto your broker, and collect your profits. Now, like I said, we're also going to be jumping into the chart so that way you can see when and where these trades were called out and thereby verify the quality and the value of our signals. But I also want to remind you all of our partnership that we have between myself and our other trading community. Not only do you get access to my signals, but you also get access to our partner signals as well. So the tally that we are going over in today's video, these are my trades. These results do not even include the number of trades that you're also going to be receiving from our partners. So you get double the signals, double the value, again, just by following and copying the trades that we send out. So again, if you want to learn more about our VIP before we hop into the chart, you can visit our website down below. Oh, and don't forget, we also provide automation as well. This is something that we first introduced into our signals community. People have been loving our signals, but I've also been asking for automation. Keep in mind, our signals and our automation is completely separate. But if you're looking for a way to leverage automation so that way you can earn automated profits throughout the week, regardless if you're, copying our signals, doing your own trading, or, just busy with your family and work life, our auto trading service provides you with the means for you to earn passive daily profits throughout the week, hands-free. So if you want to learn more about our automation, visit our website down below. So for our first trade for the month of June, we started off with a sell between 33.12 and 33.10. Here's our entry, which as you can see, take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 120 pips. Next day, we called out a buy between 33.49 and 33.47. Here's that entry at 33.47. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips. So at this point, we only started with 1 trade for the 1st of June and 1 trade for the morning on the 2nd. A slow but great start with over 450 pips in profit. And then later on in the afternoon, we called out for a sell limit between the 33.96 and 33.98. Unfortunately, price never reached that level because as you can see from the chart, price only peaked up to 33.92. So we announced to cancel this order as price never reached our target. Then we went for a sell at 33.78 and 33.80. Here's that entry, where as you can see, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 250 pips. Now on the 3rd, we started off the day with a couple of buys. A buy here at 33.58 and 33.56, and another buy between 33.54 and 33.52. So here are those two entries, which as you can see, take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 70 pips on the first, and take profits 1 to 3 hit for 110 on the second buy. Shortly after, we did another buy at 33.8 and 33.36. Here's that entry, catching the wick at the bottom of this candle, where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 240 pips. But in the midst of this buy, we also called a scalp sell between 33.48 and 33.50. Here's that entry right here in this region, which as you can see, it was a small drop from these little wicks, hit and take profit 1 for a small gain of 50 pips. Then we did a buy at 33.57, 33.55. Here's that entry, which as you can see from our targets in the chart, price came close to our stop loss, didn't hit it, so our trade still remained valid until eventually rallying, hit and take profits 1 through 4 for 180 pips. Now on the 4th, we started off the day with a couple of buys. A buy at 33.60 and a buy at 33.54. Here's that first entry and here's that second entry, which both trades ended up losing. So these are our first 2 losses for the month. But then we called for another buy at 33.47. Here's that entry in the midst of these wicks, where eventually take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 280 pips. Now, as this trade was in progress, we called out for a scalp sell at 33.48 and 33.50. Here's that entry, which only resulted in a small gain for hitting TP1 for 50 pips. But then in efforts to, make up for the 2 losses that we started the day off with, I called out for one final buy where I announced that I was personally going for the last buy of the day between 33.57 and 33.55. Here's that entry right over here in the midst of this little pullback, which as you can see based off of the chart, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for an additional 250 pips. Later on this evening, we also called out a couple series of buys here before the end of the day. A buy at 33.72, here's that entry, and then another buy at 33.75, here's that entry. As you can see, take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 120 on the first entry, and take profits 1 and 2 hit for 100 pips on the second. This was a screen recording of the analysis of the trades we called out during that day, with the tally resulting with the 2 losing trades that we started off with, but again, making up for that with the profitable trades that we called out throughout the day. On the 5th, we started off with a couple of sells. A sell at 3,400 and another sell at 33.94. So here's that first entry. Here's that second entry in the midst of these wicks. Both hit and take profits 1 through 5 for 220 pips and 250 pips on the second trade. Here's some calculations followed by another video explaining my analysis for these 2 sells. And then later on that afternoon, we called out for another sell at 33.63. Here's that entry where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for another 80 pips. Now on the 6th, we started off the day with a buy at 33.55. Here's that entry. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 90 pips before retracing back down. Now the 6th was a Friday, so we didn't call out any other trades. We returned on the following Monday, which was the 9th, where we conducted a series of sells. So our first couple of entries were for sells at 33.18, 33.22, and 33.25. So here are those first 3 entries. As price continued upwards, we targeted higher entries. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit on the first trade for 80 pips, 1 through 3 for 110 pips on the second entry, and 1 and 2 for 70 pips on the third. Then in the afternoon, we called out for a sell at 33.35. Here's that entry. And then we also did a sell at 33.24, which is this entry here. As you can see from the chart, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 250 pips on the first sell and 220 pips. On the 10th, we did a series of buys in this region of the market, a buy at 33.31, a buy at 33.35, and a buy at 33.28. So here's the first entry where I'm pointed with these arrows. Here's the second, and here's the third. First entry, take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 180 pips, 140 pips for take profits 1 through 3 on the second, and take profits 1 through 4 for 190 pips on the third entry right here at this wick. So needless to say, another great start to this day. And then we targeted a sell later on that afternoon at 33.25, where take profit 1 was hit for a minor gain of 30 pips. And then we closed the day with another buy. So that was at 33.23. Here's that entry. 33.25. Here's that entry where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for an additional 250 pips. On the 11th, we started the day again with another series of buys in this area of the market. Let me just minimize this so you can see. So we had a buy at 33.28, a buy at 33.32, and a buy at 33.36. So here's the first entry, second entry, and third entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit on our first 2 entries for 250 pips and 210 pips, and take profits 1 and 2 for 70 pips on that third buy entry from this area. Then we did, oh wait, actually I think I missed a trade here. So these are the first 3 trades, but I didn't calculate. Looks like I missed one. I didn't mark this on the chart. So these are the first 3 buys that we started the day off with. So these 3 buys are these 3 buys. But at 1:14 in the afternoon, which is 13:14 at GMT, we did a buy at 33.24. So at 13:14, we entered for the buy, 13:14. That's right around this area at 33.24. Stop loss was set at 33.16, so right around here. So this was another profitable buy, which I forgot to mark. Where take profits 1 through 5 were hit at 33.50 is right up here. So this is actually another gain where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for an additional 250 pips. So clearly I missed this. I didn't mark it on the chart, but there you have it, folks. We have another 250 pip profit for the total tally. All right, but then after this buy, we did a sell at 33.75. Here's that entry. So this was later on in the evening, which, as you can see, price consolidated for a bit until eventually dropping, hitting take profits 1 through 5 for 260 pips. Now, on the 12th, we started off with a sell, but shortly after that, as you can see, we made an announcement to close our trade at entry. This is what's referred to as break it even, where you don't make any profit, but you also don't lose any money either. And we did this because after initially thinking that we were going to go for sells, I had to reassess my analysis, and then we changed our bias. And then from there, we started calling out a series of buys. So we did a buy at 33.63. Here's that entry. A buy at 33.80. Here's that entry. And a buy at 33.72. Here's that entry. So from our first buy, I made an announcement that I was going to hold this trade until at least 3,400. If you choose to hold, make sure you trail your stop loss into profit as price rises. As you can see from the chart, and as we progress through these results, price did eventually hit our 3,400 take profit target. So if you held it for take profits 1 through 5, that was 220 pips. But if you held it to the 3,400 target, that was a total of 350 pips. On our second buy, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips, and our third buy, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 210 pips. Now, shortly after that, we called out for another buy at 33.90. Here's that entry, but as you can see, price was consolidating. I wasn't liking the price action, so I told everyone to trail their stop loss to break even or into profit to remove risk from this trade, and that was a good thing we did, closing this trade at break even. Then we did a buy at 33.87. Here's that entry. Stop loss was hit, which resulted in a loss. And then we called out for one final buy to make up for it for a lower entry at 33.84. Here's that entry, which, as you can see, as price progressed, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 220 pips. And then we did a couple of scalp sells at 34.10 and 34.30. Here are these 2 entries, 34.10 and 34.30. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 90 pips on the first, and 1 and 2 for 80 pips on the second. Now, on the 13th, we started off the day with a series of sells. A sell at 34, actually, let me just expand this so you can see it a little bit better. So a sell at 34.27, a 34.17, and 34.26. So here's the first entry, second entry, and third entry. Take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 140 pips on the first, 30 pips for take profit 1 on the second, and another minor gain of 30 pips for take profit 1 on the third. Then we called out for a buy at 34.38. Here's that entry where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 80 pips. So as you can see, for this session, we had a series of small gains. I did a video analysis of the trades that we called out for that day and the days prior, bringing us to the 16th of July, where we started the day with a buy at 34.17. So here's that entry where take profit 1 was hit for 50 pips before the drop, followed by another buy at 34.11. Here's our entry where take profit 1 was initially hit for 50 pips. I also announced that I went for another entry as price was consolidating with the same take profit targets. So if you took the second entry, you gained an additional 30 pips. Then we had a pretty big drop, which came down to our support level. So we called out for a buy at 33.82, and then we did another buy at 33.82 again once price retested this level. So here's our first entry at 33.82. As you can see, price came up, hit take profits 1 through 5 for 200 pips. Then price came back down, retested our original entry once again, which is why I called out another buy at 3.82. So we entered here, where take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 90 pips. Then we did a buy at 3,400. Here's that entry for a small gain of 30 pips. Now, the next day, we did a series of sells. Our first sell actually didn't work out so well, so we did a sell here at 33.82. Here's that entry where our stop loss was hit, resulting in a loss. But then as price came up to higher levels, we did a sell at 33.95, 33.93, and then we also did another sell at 33.86. So here's the first entry, second entry, and third entry. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for both of these two trades for 250 pips and 230 pips. And then our sell at 33.86, which was over here, take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 140 pips. As price came up to this area, we called out for another sell. All right, so as you can see, we did another video where I explained my analysis, followed by the sell that we called out here at 33.90. So here's that entry where price came down, retraced into drawdown for a little bit, but then before continuing back down to our lower targets, hit and take profits 1 through 4 for 200 pips. On the 18th, let's just find the 18th. So on the 18th, we did a series of buys. We did a buy at 33.82. Here's that entry. A buy at 33.85. Here's that entry. And then another buy at 33.76. Here's that entry in the midst of this wick. So first buy, take profits 1 through 3 were hit for 140 pips. Our second buy at 33.85. I instructed everyone to trail their stop loss at break even. Wasn't liking the price action, and it was a good thing we did because as you can see from the chart, price came down even lower with this lower wick. So not only did we avoid the loss from that second buy, but we ended up capitalizing on another buy where we took a buy here at 33.76, where our entry was in the midst of this wick. Hit and take profits 1 through 4 for 180 pips. Then we did a buy at 33.70. Here's our entry where take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 160 pips. And then the next day on the 19th, we did a couple of sells, a sell at 33.78 and 33.72. So here's the 78, here's the 72. Take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips on the first trade, and 220 pips for take profits 1 through 5 on the second trade. Now on the 20th, we had a bit of a rough start. We did a couple of sells here at 33.46 and 33.66, both of which did not work out well, resulting in a loss. And then on the following week, and this is why we had less trades towards the last week of the month, I announced here that on the 23rd, which was a Monday, that I was away with my wife and kids on a little vacation, that we would be back on Wednesday, which during this time, I wasn't going to be able to send out signals. So make sure that you paid attention to any signals sent by our partners. So again, folks, this is one of the benefits of, our partnership that we have. The signals that we're talking about in my videos and the calculations and the results are from my personal signals, but you also get access to our partner signals. So especially in cases where I'm on vacation or if I'm away and I can't send out signals, at least you also have access to our partner signals as well. So we came back on the 25th, which was Wednesday, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, the 25th was a Wednesday. So after our little vacation, we came back on the 25th with the buy at 33.34. Here's our entry where take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 160 pips. And then on the 26th, we did a couple of sells where our first sell was here at 33.39. And then we did another sell at 33.30 right over here. So first trade, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 240 pips, and take profits 1 through 5 were hit on our second trade for 230 pips. All right. Later on that afternoon, we did another sell at 33.32, which was right here. Whereas price continued to drop, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for another 200 pips. And then on the next day, actually, hold up. Looks like I forgot to mark another trade here, guys. So let's see. We did a sell here at 33.21 at 9:56 p.m. So my time, that's what, 22 GMT. So a sell at 33.21 at 22 GMT. So 22 GMT is right around here, right? Yep, 33.21, between 33.21 and 33.19. In the midst of this pullback, stop loss was at 33.29, so right here. So yeah, didn't even come close to our stop loss, where our take profits 1 through 5 maxed out at 32.97. So yeah, this was another trade that I had forgotten to mark on the chart, but as you can see, another profitable trade where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for about 220 pips. So that's another trade we forgot to add to the tally. And now we can move on to the 27th of June. So on the 27th, we started off with a buy at 32.64. Here's that entry. A sell at 32.78. Here's that entry. So for our buy, we take profits 1 through 4 were hit for 180 pips. And then for our sell, take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips as a result of this big drop. Then on the following trading day, which was a Monday, so that was the 30th, we did, let me just expand this. We did a sell at 32.85 and a sell at 32.82. Here are those two entries. Take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 90 pips on the first trade, and then take profit 1 for 50 pips on the second. A sell at 32.91. Here's that entry where take profits 1 and 2 were hit for 70 pips. And then we did a buy, so we changed our bias, and then we called out for a buy. Let me just pull this up. A buy at 32.93. Here's that entry where take profits 1 through 5 were hit for 230 pips. And then we set a buy limit between 32.99 and 32.97. But then we ended up canceling that order because price number hit our target. So there you have it, folks. That's our monthly recap for the month of June with a 92% win rate. And actually, the percentage win rate is a little bit higher, and so are the earnings, because as we went over in the charts, there were a couple of trades that we had missed, which added an additional, 500 plus pips onto the total tally. So another great month in the books, even though the last week of the month was a little bit slow in comparison to the prior weeks because I was away for several days. We were still able to deliver quality, which of course is of the utmost importance in terms of delivering accurate signals that people can actually copy and, more importantly, profit from. So if you like what you see and you want to learn more, visit our website down below in regards to our services, and we'll see you on the inside of our VIP. Take care.